Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. This is a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist. I have spent about 40 years treating ADHD and evaluating it, and in children, adults, adolescents, even some geriatrics. And I'm also the parent of at least one ADHD child, and very possibly two. Uh, Back in those days, we did not even have ADHD as a diagnosis. Okay, I mean we're talking ADHD wasn't a diagnosis till 1987. ADD was a diagnosis in 1980. Um, I guess that's what happens when you have a committee doing stuff. It changes things just to be changing them, I think. Don't know that it added anything at all to anybody, except that I have tons of people coming into my office, insisting, oh, my son's not ADHD, he's just ADD. And I have to explain that. Anyway, so what you may or may not have heard about ADHD, you may have heard that it is caused by some problems with low levels of a neurotransmitter. Usually it's dopamine that they talk about. Sometimes they also add norepinephrine. But it's just the idea that the level is not as high as it is in a neurotypical brain. So that many of the things they are doing that irritate people are really somewhat unregulated attempts to try to stimulate the flow of dopamine in the brain. And explain the way the brain works a little, and well, the nervous system works. It's our whole bodies basically are electrochemical systems. When the signal, that's how you get the signal so you can move your arm or whatever. But you have nerves, which most people have a kind of an idea that a nerve, it's kind of like a big wire with a little bubble on the end of it, and a little sort of talony looking thing on the other end. Okay. When the signal is inside the neuron, that's, it is electrical. When it gets to another neuron at a thing we call a synapse, okay. Whoops, I'm getting confused because I'm turning around. Okay. If I think of my arm as the neuron, and this is where the synapse is, and this hand is the head of another neuron. Okay, as long as the signal is inside my arm, it's electrical. When we get to the synapse, it becomes a chemical signal, and that's where neurotransmitters take over. This arm, this side, secretes the neurotransmitter, and this side picks it up. I really think I got to get to do something better than this for making it clear to y'all. But the idea is that when it goes through the synapse, the receiving end picks up the neurotransmitter, and the signal therefore continues on. And for most of the neuro uh, most of the signals that are sent are related to how you feel. They either excite you or they drop you down. Okay, like depression is caused by problems with serotonin. Uh, ADHD is mostly dopamine. Okay, there are some good news and some bad news about that sort of thing. The problem we have with with dopamine, and the reason uh, people are frequently given stimulant medication is that that stimulates the secretion of dopamine, and they feel normal. Okay, and a lot of the times, oh, the things that kids do that drive their parents crazy, like hanging on the end of a tree branch and dropping to the ground, seeing if they can make it without breaking something. Those kinds of things. Oh God. Okay. Anyway, the deal with the neurotransmitters is that you have to have, if you have the normal level on board, you'll feel normal. If you don't have the normal level on board, you're uncomfortable. That's why a lot of the running around screaming and and doing dangerous stuff that stimulates the flow of dopamine, and they feel normal. It as a I'm sorry, we've got some rather distracting sorts of comments here, and but what I'm trying to get to you is that a lot of the behavior that we think of as sort of irrational and that sort of stuff is based on the idea that, or not even the idea because it's not a conscious thought. They're just trying to get the flow of dopamine. They're just trying to feel better, and that's what uh, getting exercise, excitement, that kind of stimulation does for them. And that's why, like, punishment doesn't work very well because it has no effect at all on the neurotransmitters. They just wasn't doing very well before, and now I'm not doing very well later. The deal you're going to have people are going to talk about some is that sometimes exercise by itself is enough for people with fairly mild cases of ADHD to feel the flow of, they'll feel normal. Okay, basically, the exercising that tends to do that to him. Dr. John Ratey, who's a Harvard psychiatrist and does a lot of work with ADHD. He's a big fan of exercise, and there are indeed some people who that's all they do for their ADHD, and there are other people who aren't on stimulant medication, but they they drink a whole bunch of coffee, and that's apparently enough to keep them going, uh, but it's not enough to. Uh, well, it's not. It doesn't work for everybody. Let's just put it that way. Just drinking a whole bunch of coffee is not necessarily going to do the same thing for uh, a person with ADHD as might be hoped. Let's just put it that way. ADHDers, there's some variability in ADHD, and sometimes it's sort of normally distributed, if you will. You get a little bit or you get a whole bunch, and if you get a little bit, you can get away with doing some things that are more compensations than actual treatments, and then great, all for you. Whatever you need to function in your world, uh, that's fine with me. And there's anyway uh, the I guess the point I'm just trying to make is that, yeah, there seems to be a difference in neurotransmitters in ADHD folks. It's not being secreted as fast as it, or as high, to as high a level as it is in a neurotypical brain, and that causes them to feel uncomfortable and so on. It is not a um, well, it's I mean, this is one explanation we have, okay, and this is the one we think is right, and We may find later on with more advanced research and that sort of stuff that there's something totally different going on. But for right now, what we think is that there's a lack of dopamine at the level that people feel comfortable with. And dopamine has a lot to do with how comfortable you feel. So that ADHDers are naturally trying to do the things that get them, stimulate the production of extra dopamine and make them feel more close to normal. That's why if you look at people who do dangerous things for fun, a lot of times they're people with pretty strong cases of ADHD, and jumping out of a perfectly good airplane seems like a great idea to them. But what it is that is making the dopamine flow faster, and so they feel more normal, and they are more likely. Well, they're more likely in general that if you look at people who do dangerous stuff, they're more likely to have some aspects of ADHD. And so the only other thing I can think of is, probably you think of athletes that have ADHD, and there are a number of them. Probably the best known one recently is Michael Phelps, the swimmer. He had pretty significant ADHD. Unfortunately, his mother was a school principal, and she got him treatment fast, and she got him also involved in competitive swimming, which served the purpose of making it so he could survive reasonably well. He's retired, and now he talks about also, he was pretty significantly depressed. So he talks about that a fair amount. But just wanted to, give you some quick information on ADHD and what neurotransmitters, and there are 7 neurotransmitters altogether, roughly, and they are the way the nervous system works, sending signals all throughout. And when your neurotransmitters are in balance, you're feeling mellow and calm. When they are out of balance, you're not very comfortable. Let's put it that way. And so these kids you're looking at, they are not acting out because they like the negative attention. They're acting out because it's stimulating to just run around and scream their head off. And as anybody who's ever spent Thanksgiving in a house with a lot of ADHD people can tell you, it's pretty loud sometimes. So just hope that was helpful. And my website is terrygingrassphd.com. You can sign up for my list there, and we will catch you next week. Okay. See ya.